Without knowing things like FPS, resolution, or what platform these are being played on, which of these three gameplays look the best? Let's talk about the best way to play the game and how you can make the best out of your situation. Hey guys, Nightfall here, and I'm making the full switch over to PC for XDefiant, cat's out of the bag right up front. But if you can't just switch over to PC, you might want to stick around, and if you want the best performance on PC, you should also stick around. If we keep looking at these three same gameplays side by side, which one do you think is on console? Keep in mind that the console is being played on 120Hz 1080p, and if you said the middle one, you'd be correct. If you said either of the other ones, you may have been misled because both of those are being played on PC, and while one is at 1080p and the other is at 1440p, they're both running at over 240 FPS and have customized settings to maximize the performance and lower the quality of the visuals. You may have also been baited because the editing software I use doesn't allow for anything higher than 60 FPS, so even though the one on the left is 1080p on PC running close to 400 FPS, and the one on the right is 1440p on PC running at 300 FPS, you might not be able to see that. Throughout the rest of this video, I'll be switching gameplays and just talking over it so you can see the FPS count in the top left corner, and I'll add the resolution in post in the top right corner. And if you see no FPS counter in the top left, then just know it's 120 FPS, but it's on the Xbox Series X. So let's first talk about why I'm switching over to PC entirely for this game. This is something I would never do for games like Apex or Rainbow Six Siege, and I've talked about this before on this channel. I'm used to playing with a controller. Mouse and keyboard is still foreign to me for FPS games, but playing a game on PC using a controller, you put yourself at a severe disadvantage. You're playing against all mouse and keyboard players who have a way higher accuracy and movement and all of that stuff, and it's just all advantages. Controller has no advantage in most games, especially a game like Rainbow Six Siege where there's no aim assist. But with XDefiant, you can play with input-based matchmaking, meaning I can still reap all of the benefits of playing on PC, like higher FPS and just more overall customizability, but use a controller without having to worry about getting stomped on by people on mouse and keyboard. This is just one of the main benefits, but when you talk about movement, you don't need to be on a mouse and keyboard to get better movement. Not for this game. Just look at the side-by-side comparison of the air strafing. Left side is on Xbox, right side is on PC, and both are using controller. The movement on PC just looks and feels more fluid, and sure, that could be due to higher FPS, but I've even tested this on lower FPS 120 to 120, PC versus Xbox, straight apples to apples, and it still feels and looks like PC has the edge here. Just moving left and right in midair, you can't do that on a console. But if you don't have a gaming PC, all hope is not lost. To start, I would highly recommend turning your crossplay off, not input-based matchmaking, but crossplay. I'm not entirely sure how it works on PS5, but on Xbox, you have to do it from your console's privacy settings, and turning off crossplay will stop you from getting into lobbies with PC players that are using controller and absolutely wrecking you with air strafing. You should also make sure that your console is set to 1080p and 120Hz, and then also make sure that your 120Hz option is turned on in XDefiant, because I found out today that at some point this got changed on my in-game settings and I was at 60 FPS. And if you've been playing this game on 60 FPS and you change it to 120, you'll instantly feel and see the difference. Also, if it doesn't mess with you too much, I would suggest maxing your field of view, as this will help you see more of your surroundings. As far as console goes, that's really all you can do for any kind of performance gains or anything like that. So now let's talk about PC settings. Since I got my new PC, I've had a few people ask me how I'm getting super high frames per second, and there is a few tricks to this that I can show you. People think that turning down settings too far will make the game unplayable because of how bad it will look, and spoiler alert, the gameplay that you've been watching that's been on PC has all been on the following settings, and personally, it looks very comparable to playing on console where you can't even change any of these settings. So you can see here I'm playing on 1440p at 240 Hz, and I get around 300 FPS consistently while playing the game. And if I dropped it down to 1080p, that number would spike up to 400. So let's run through some of these settings really quick. Triple buffering and reduced latency should be off, and your NVIDIA reflex should be turned on. That is, if you have this option. If you don't have this, it's safe to turn reduced latency on, but still keep triple buffering off. As far as the DX12 renderer, I never turn it on even though I'm on Windows 11, because when I did try it, I didn't see any sort of gains from it, so I just don't see the point. You're also going to have VSync and frame rate limit off, and then basically every other setting that you have here is either going to be set to low or off. For sharpening, I like 7, but this is more your preference than anything else, so you'd have to play around with that one. But everything else you see, like shadows, fog, particle detail, turn it all down to low or off. Object detail and extra streaming distance, you can move the slider all the way down to 0, and then the rest of these, again, just low or off. So if you want to copy my settings here, you can. And if you still don't get enough frames per second, you can also come back up to the resolution scale and turn it down to 85%. And for me, that gets me a quick 30 FPS boost. And then you can even drop it down to 75% at the next option. I wouldn't recommend going below that because the next option is 50%. And the game might just look way too bad at that point, but feel free to try it out. If it gets you more FPS and you can tolerate the way that it looks, then have at it. And that about covers it for the in-game settings. I should mention that I have a 4070 Super graphics card, and I do have it overclocked using MSI Afterburner. So really quickly, I want to jump in here and show you what you can actually do, whether you feel comfortable or not, overclocking your GPU. So to start, if you don't feel comfortable messing with any of these settings, you don't have to. But there's a really cool feature here called Overclock Scanner, which you just click and scan, and it finds a mild, stable overclock for your GPU. Simple, safe, and easy. If you're more on the tech-savvy side and feel comfortable doing the overclock manually, here's a quick tutorial, but I would recommend looking for more in-depth ones for your specific graphics card. You're going to launch the MSI Combustor app from here, and this will open a window that looks like this. And I'd recommend putting this resolution down to 1024 by 768 so that it's in a windowed mode, and then you'll run the stress test. Once the stress test pops up, you're going to want to select these two options here, and then let it run for about a minute or so. Once it's been running for about a minute, you're going to go back to MSI Afterburner and bump your power limit and temperature limit as far up as it'll go. And then you're going to start adding plus 50 to the core clock. You'll do this plus 50 at a time. Wait a minute, watch the stress test, make sure everything's stable, and then repeat. All the way up until it crashes your stress test window. It may also crash your entire PC as well. Just remember what your last setting was at, so that when you get back to the overclock screen, you'll decrease it by 100 from whatever it was last at. So if your PC or stress window crashed right after you bump this up to plus 200, you'll leave it at plus 100 like I have mine. If your PC does crash, don't freak out. Nothing's being harmed in the process. You'll simply boot back into your computer as normal and continue on. Once you have your core clock set, you'll move on to the memory clock and you'll just repeat the same process. Sometimes you can get lucky and get your core clock up to about plus 300 or plus 400. I'm not so fortunate on that front, but I did get my memory clock to max out at plus 2000, so there's that, I guess. You can also do some things in your BIOS with overclocking your CPU and stuff, and that's starting to get into at your own risk territory, so you can look up other videos for that. The only overclocking I have on my CPU and my RAM is the built-in XMP and AMD boost. But ultimately, I run the game at 1440p, 300 FPS with all my settings on low. It runs very well and it doesn't look like complete trash. And I can still play with my controller. So now you see why I'm choosing to make the full switch over to PC with input-based matchmaking. There is no downside to this. Hopefully this will help some of you out with getting the most performance out of whatever platform you play on and reduce the number of headaches you get from the game in general. I can't help with your netcode and hit reg issues though, but maybe they'll get those fixed soon. I have heard we have a patch coming this week, either Tuesday or Wednesday, so stay tuned for that video, and I'll have it out as soon as I hear or see some confirmed patch notes. And if you made it this far in the video, comment overclock, and also let me know what platform you play on. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, as I'm really trying to build up a following over there, because it seems like if you're not popular on Twitter, you're not cool, and I want to be one of the cool kids. So if you have Twitter or X or whatever you call it, head on over there, give me a follow, and I'll catch you in the next one.